It's time for Drummer Nation. During the U.S. quarantine of 2020, Sean Kennedy revisited the popular 1700s rudimental snare drum solo, The Downfall of Paris. After discovering a little-known fife part, Sean penned an arrangement for percussion section with brass quintet. Friends Clayton, Cameron, and Bernie Dresel were enlisted as additional snare drummers. Over a 2-week period, the musicians began submitting their audio and video performances to Sean, who had them edited into a unique performance.
I absolutely love playing drums, and I couldn't imagine not having that in my life. And I really, if I could help facilitate that and have an impact on your life so that you can play drums, that means the world to me.
These Regal Tip session sticks feel great. They kind of put me in the mindset of a thinner and lighter 5A. Go to regaltip.com, order a pair, or go to your nearest music store. Pick up a pair, let us know exactly how you feel about the stick.
Introducing the Star Festival Snare Drum from Gary Astridge, a handcrafted and precision replica of the rarest and most iconic of drums, Ringo Starr's 1963 Ludwig Jazz Festival. Each instrument is authorized and hand-signed by Ringo Starr and will benefit his charity, the Lotus Foundation.
Memphis Drum Shop is the world's premier provider of percussion instruments. With 6 showrooms of gear, mycymbal.com, the Memphis Gong Chamber, and a first-rate repair department, turn to Memphis Drum Shop for all your percussion needs. Welcome to another episode of Drummer Nation, and this is a very special episode because, first of all, we're celebrating the 4th of July, and secondly, I have 3 wonderful guests instead of just one. So they are, top left, Bernie Dresel, living in Los Angeles. Bottom left, Sean Kennedy. And where are you, Sean?
Oh,
Philadelphia.
That's nice.
Philadelphia. Bottom right, Clayton Cameron. And you're in LA too, right?
Yep.
In fact, Clayton's at the beach as we speak.
I'm at the beach.
He is not.
Manhattan Beach.
It's an imaginary beach, but it's an imaginary world we're in. So we're all hunkered down in this COVID isolation time, and musicians are finding creative ways to work with one another. Sean put this package together with the idea of people in different areas performing The Downfall of Paris. And there's more to the story, but did this start out as a COVID project, Sean, or did you have it in mind prior?
No, there's a couple dots that have to be connected, I guess, to get to here, to the COVID project. Please. Yeah. Well, all of us, if we've studied rudimental drumming, have come across The Downfall of Paris. So it's been in my vocabulary for decades. It's one of the standards of rudimental drumming. And I've been playing with a brass group out here in Philly called the Hickory Brass. And they're a wonderful group, but as a drummer, I'm usually in the back doing some oompa stuff and accompaniment. And the director was really open to people contributing arrangements. So I was listening to an old CD by Frederick Fennell. I think it was called Spirit of 76, Flourishes and Ruffles. It's all the military music from the 17 and 1800s. And there's actually a melody that goes to The Downfall of Paris. Just fife. It was solo fife and a couple drums. So I took the fife melody, added some harmony and counter melodies and rhythms and things like that. And we tried it with the brass group out here. And it was a feature for me. I could bring the snare drum out front. And it was a little different than the regular brass quintet thing. And it caught on. And when COVID hit, I was trying to think of creative projects to do with friends from all across the country. And this one seemed to work perfectly because a lot of the drummers would have known it. It was different for the brass, and that's kind of the genesis of this project.
I've read that The Downfall of Paris is ancient, and it's the most commonly known and commonly played snare drum solo, rudimental snare drum solo of all time. So is it fair to say we all grew up playing that as kids? I have a little side story on that. I was 7th grade beginner's band, showed up, didn't know how to hold the sticks, and my band director was something of a drummer, so I studied with him. And by December or so, he had me working on The Downfall of Paris, which was pretty, ambitious at the time. But I was having such a hard time with it that I still have a purple mimeograph sheet to give away my age, where it says The Downfall of Paris, and he crossed out Paris and wrote Vospine on the top. But I
Composer of that again.
I don't think.
Who's the composer of Downfall of Paris?
I don't know. It's like late 1700s, and it was just a traditional tune. They think it came from a military regiment over in England, and that's kind of where it originated.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the ones I learned as a kid, you know, the Connecticut General and Three Camps and all that, this is the only one I truly remember. So it was great to hear what you did. How did you discover the fife part? Because I never knew there was a melody to it.
Yeah, it was two different things. I had first seen the fife part. I was at this old drum shop. I don't know if you guys heard of the Keswick Theater. It's kind of near me. It's a pretty famous theater around here. And there was an old drum shop behind it. And I saw the Francis Augustus Muller snare drum method from the 40s. It was like an original copy for $1. And I bought it, and it had all the classic solos in it. And in the drum book, the fife part was in there. And that's where I first saw it. I started, pecking it out on my xylophone at home. And then when I heard Fennell's version of it, everything came together. And the thing that really got to me was how funky it was for the 1700s. Like, I can't imagine what it must have sounded like back then with those upbeats and all that. It must have been super funky in the 1700s.
I think Tower of Power got a lot of their stuff from that, actually.
Oh, I think you're right. Garibaldi. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I always thought that the Flamington was a funky rudiment, you know,
Yeah.
just the Flamington itself
It is.
Yeah.
made it sound funky to me. Clayton, you grew up playing this too?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you did anything in the NARD book, that's, it had all that stuff. And what you're speaking to, those things that sound funky usually have some sort of dotted notes in them. So, like, 1 and 2, like that 4/3 thing. And so anytime you start putting those things together, that's why they sound funky, because, 3 is a funky thing.
It's a funky thing. And Bernie, you grew up playing this as well?
I did so much rudimental drumming when I was a kid. I mean, I started lessons at 4.5, but I remember I would call NARD, Nard.
Yeah, Nard, right.
Nard to me.
I called it that too.
And Nard was actually, we bought a dog, a Schnauzer, and his last name was Nard that we bought the dog from. So I thought that was cool. Maximilian Prince Nard was our dog.
Was he a rudimental dog? Well, he was a funky dog.
I guess so.
And then the other book, the one that Philly Joe liked was Wilcoxon.
Oh, yeah.
So, so between, the real straight one and then the Wilcoxon, you got a whole lot of combinations in there that are really nice.
Yep.
I was talking to Jim Rupp in Columbus, Columbus Pro Percussion, I think it is, the owner there, a couple of weeks ago, and he said, yeah, now that we're all at home, we're all pulling out our rudimental books, and he mentioned the Wilcoxon book. You can open up any page and see how far you can go before you make a mistake, because it's great reading material, and it's pretty accessible, and it's still, I don't think it's in print. I was looking for it, and I had to find where I had lent it to us and get it back.
What's not in print?
The Charlie Wilcoxon book?
No, it's still in print.
I thought so, but I couldn't see it.
Yeah, no, it's still. Yeah, it's there.
Maybe it's in PDF now.
Yeah, right. It's one of those books I bought 3 or 4 times, and every time it's a little more expensive, Shaping book, stick control book, syncopation.
Stick control.
The classics, you always leave them with a student or something, and they're gone, and you end up buying them again and again.
Or if they change page numbers, people get mad. Like,
it's confusing.
like, wait, that was page 4 before.
That's right.
Syncopation, page 37.
Don't change the page numbers.
And how many people really got past page 1 on stick control? You can spend the rest of your life on that page. We all did. Point taken. I know we all did. But
no, I was going to say, Steve Gadd posted not too long ago, a picture of his stick control book and commented on how important it was.
Yeah. These are Bibles to drummers. If you're a young man or woman looking at this, check out these books. So, Sean, you decided to have 3 drummers play the snare drum part?
Actually, 4 of us are playing snare drum. Bernie, Clayton, myself, and a friend of mine who's the associate principal percussionist at the Shanghai Phil. He's playing snare with us. And then I have the principal timpanist from the Philly Pops is covering bass drum and cymbals. And I love cymbals so much, we got another cymbal player. I have a friend from New York playing cymbals with us.
Well, let's give their names. Let's give them some credit.
Yeah, so David Liu is from the Shanghai Phil. He's actually from Philadelphia originally, but he was working with them a lot before COVID, and he's not doing much now except practicing. So he was really happy to join this project. The bass drum slash cymbal player is Dave Nelson from the Philly Pops, and Chihiro Shibayama is the other cymbal player who I got from New York, who's really busy or was busy with a lot of the Broadway shows.
Great. And then what was the instrumentation for the melodic parts?
Yeah, the melodic. That all started with a friend of mine, Chris Coletti, who just retired from 10 years in the Canadian Brass. He was one of their trumpet players. And well before COVID, about 5 or 6 years ago, I had pitched this idea to him to do this live or have the Canadian Brass do it or something. And he was like, yeah, we'll see. And it kind of just disappeared. And when this hit, I was trying to think of a project to do with him and some of my brass player friends out there. And this was just perfect. So I sent it to Chris and I said, and I had this crazy idea of having like 50 brass players. Like we should get all these trumpets and all these trombones. And he said, whoa, why don't we just have 5? I think it'll be more manageable. So I deferred to him as the brass expert. So he's playing trumpet 1 and 2. I have a French horn player who's also a mutual friend of Bernie's, Tony Lynn from LA. She does a lot of session work and freelance stuff out there. The trombone is the principal trombonist of the Philly Orchestra, Nitsan Hiros. And I've worked with him in different freelance situations here on the East Coast a lot. And we were dying to do a collaboration together. So he signed up. And then we needed tuba. And Chris Coletti is teaching up at Ithaca now. And the tuba professor is a monster. And he said, why don't you call Dave Earl? And David Earl did it. And that's the 4 people playing 5 brass parts.
Beautiful. I've heard it, but I haven't seen it yet. We're going to play it in a little bit here. But
Great.
This is done during COVID, so you didn't. Unfortunately, I think I've been assured by the technical wizards that we're a long way away from being able to jam together because of latency issues.
Yeah.
As long as there's the speed of light and speed of sound involved, So you did it the way a lot of people are doing things now, where you do tracks all over the place and then somebody puts it together. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And was that crazy for you guys to do, Clayton? Was that strange playing to a? Would you just play to a click, or did you have the others in your ear?
No, Sean sent a couple of tracks with click and I think brass part, and I don't even remember what I listened to, but as long as there was a click there, it wasn't any problem, So I don't even remember if I played to the click or to the. I don't even remember what I played to, but whatever it was good.
I remember it was quite a highlight in my life. I remember this like it was yesterday. There's not a lot of highlights in life now, right? You got to make them. Okay, so we didn't have just click, because if it would be just click, everyone's interpretation of where the real center is could be off. So right. Sean played first a snare drum part. So even though we have click and then Sean, so now Sean's the law. So we kind of, play to Sean, but I don't hear Clayton playing. So I hear brass-wise, I hear, if I remember right, do I remember it? Like a MIDI demo of it. Was that right?
Yep, yeah, that's right. It was only
MIDI. Or samples or something. Yep. So just to give the flavor, but really to lock in, I was hearing when I recorded my part, the click and one snare drum only. And then I played to that, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. That a lot of people can play to the same click, but great musicians make their living in the space between the notes, right? And so however somebody shades it, you have to match that or you're not playing together really.
Yeah, and it was really cool to dovetail off of what Bernie said. I sent my snare drum playing with the click out, and then Bernie was going through it, and he called me and said, hey, in measure 7, did you do this? So it was like we were far apart, but we were collaborating. Clayton did it, and then the brass players. So even though we were so far apart, everyone was locked into the same thing as if there was a principal player, and we all kind of coalesced that way. It was really cool how that happened.
Well, one of the things I guess the lead player would set is some of the interpretations of the 7-stroke rolls in there, right?
Yep.
Sometimes we know a 7-stroke roll coming on the 2nd, 8th note will actually start on the E. Sometimes it'll be quickened, so it's like a triplet roll. So you set that then, Sean, and everybody went with that?
He wrote it out. He wrote it.
Yeah, I wrote out what I did.
He was a taskmaster. I was sweating, going, oh my God, how can I do this? No, but he was very specific and had it well notated, so it was pretty easy.
I was wondering
And it
how
wa-
you would handle it.
Yeah, and it was interesting because of the history of the piece. You listen to 5 different drummers play this by themselves, you're going to have 5 different interpretations, I think. So I was going back and
Right.
forth, and I finally settled on Dr. John Wooten and Frederick Fennell's interpretations. And I kind of took what I liked from both of theirs, and I said, this is mine, and this is how we're going to do it, so it can make sense when we record it.
So that's an important point, both the syncing everybody together so they sound like they're really playing together, and the specific interpretations of each articulation have to
Right.
match to be a group. So it sounds like a band when we hear it. We're going to hear it in 1 second. Now, what did you do for the drums? Did everybody play? Did you have rope drums or little drums and big drums? Or how did you get the different voices like that?
I guess I'll go first because they had to listen to me. I had an old 1950s field drum, a Slingerland. No, not a Slingerland, sorry, a WFL. That's what the plate says. And I had a calfskin head on it with combo snares. And I kept muting it and messing around in my own studio until I got a sound that I liked that sounded old school and dark. And then I sent it out to the guys, and they came up with their own idea of what could complement my sound. So I'll let the guys speak to how they figured out what drum to use.
Yeah, Bernie, what'd you use?
So I used a traditional field drum size. I mean, I thought about going possibly really orchestral with it, which would be like, gut, snare, tighter, that we would use in the studio too. But I went with a 15-inch head by 12 depth, 15 by 12 Traviato with wood hoops, a little darker. Sean's was a little brighter sound. I thought, okay, that'll be a nice change to add in there. It's still in the field kind of area, definitely. And the shell was that baseball bat, old school edge, with mahogany, bird's eye maple mahogany. So that Traviato solid shell, which is a little unique for a field drum. That's not what the field drums were, obviously, in the 50s or WFLs and things like that. So a little different sound. But also I was like, we're recording it, not just playing it live. So I did a close mic on the snare. I think it was a condenser and a 57, maybe one or the other. That one I don't remember. But then I used a room mic too and said, hey, here's a room mic, stereo ribbon and AEA R88 in what they call bloom line. It's like that and goes left and right, just to add some air. Because I was thinking, if we play this live, it might be in a theater, or in a space that has space sound, not just close mic'd studio. So I said, here's an option if you think you want to add that in a little bit, and it might make us all sound like we're in that room a little bit, and give some air to it. So I added that to my drum too.
Very cool. And Clayton, what did you choose?
I picked out, I have this like 1947 Lady Ludwig that I pulled out. It's mahogany with tin, what do you call those things?
Lugs?
Tin.
Lug screws.
Tension rod. Yeah.
I know, I always confuse what they're called too.
And and it's about 6.5. It's probably a little deeper than 6.5. It appears to be 6.5. And and I hadn't played it in a while, so it was really nice to be able to pull it out. And just one mic, a little 57, and it just, I said I better do this before Sean gets mad at me. Like,
He's such
come
a
on,
tasker.
do it. Oh yes, I forgot. Okay, but yeah, that's it. I think it worked out well. It's nice to pull it out.
One thing worth mentioning to kids today is that the rudimental drum sound of yesteryear is not the current DCI kind of a sound. Wouldn't we all agree on that?
Oh yeah.
Far from it.
Oh yeah. I often think about, like, if you ever look at the the history of rudimental drumming and how it's used for military, and how unfortunately it was little boys going out there, playing that drum, and just the sound of those, and then the openness of it, it's nothing like the DCI, whatever that stuff is. I never did any of that, but if anything, I would have done like Gremlin College.
Oh yeah.
that kind of stuff. But I never did it. Yeah, exactly. I probably would have leaned more towards that. But the only marching band that I was ever in was, Bernie, you're not from LA, are you?
I'm from Sharon, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. So in LA we had the.
I live in LA now.
No, I know, but I didn't know if you grew up. But here we had the All City Marching Band, and so it was where they had all the different high schools in LA County, and they would take students from each school. And so my first year, I don't know if you remember the drummer James Bradley Jr. used to play with Chuck Mangione. So James was in the band, myself, Vanessa Brown, the percussionist. We had a whole bunch of cats in that band, and it was just the funnest, winter, because you were just getting ready for the Rose Bowl parade. And so the second year that I was there, I wrote one of the cadences.
Wow.
And so it's straight out of like kind of a Wilcoxon, combination, a Nard book, that sort of thing. And the thrill of my life at that time was like hearing it on television.
Wow.
It's like the whole, and they played it for about 3 years at least after I graduated. So that was kind of cool. But that was the only marching drum stuff that I did. But I always appreciated, like listening to Philly Joe Jones, because he used a lot of rudiments in his playing, that sort of thing. So, and the Wilcoxon books. So the rudiments are, just, there are scales, if you will,
Yep.
I thought we might your track with brushes on it, possibly. Aren't you not?
It's funny you say that. When I was a kid, one of the first clinics I saw was Butch Miles back when he was the bassy, and he came out and he played 3 camps or something like that with brushes, just to show that that's one thing you can do with brushes. Clayton does a lot more than
Yeah. When I was touring, I only toured one. I toured 1 year with the Basie band and did one record with them, and they pulled out Cute, and so that was really, really fun. Just to do brushes with a big band like that. Yeah.
For people who don't know, that's a drum feature. Oftentimes, it's a melody with open space. Ba da 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 da. Drums, 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 da, 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 and it goes through the song like that. It's an often played drum feature. So
and tap dance feature too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Did you ever tap dance?
Well,
No,
did.
Any of you guys?
I only worked with them, but I never tapped myself.
That's what I meant.
2 years.
Did you really?
When I was 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Buddy,
Me and another friend, and then he quit 1 year, and then I was with a bunch of gals. And when you're 11 years old, that's too heavy.
Yeah. I know, like, you weren't a dancer per se, but you learned. Sammy Davis and guys like that hipped you to some stuff, didn't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was working with Sammy Davis, there was a 2 weeks of shows that really changed my life, and that was listening to, first of all, Sammy play just fool around with Jerry Lewis. Sammy would really tap, and then Jerry would just kind of fool around, do the Nutty Professor kind of tap. And then, Sammy would incredulously say, Jerry, what are you doing? That's not tap dancing. Jerry's like, what? No, it's tap dancing. Yeah, right. And so then Sammy would gesture to the wings, and then out would come Bunny Briggs, Sandman Sims, and Arthur Duncan. And so we did this show for 2 weeks. And so for 2 weeks, I watched them come out and, each do their thing. And then in the second week, Gregory Hines surprised Sammy, and he came out a couple of nights. And so watching those guys really changed my life, because then that's when I started trying to emulate what they were doing, because it was so profound. And it took me about 4 years to figure it out, but it was very interesting. It really changed my perspective.
Are you guys hip to the Joe Jones album called The Drums?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like the audience out there, go check it. It's probably, you can listen to it on YouTube, where he goes through all the different tap dancers, how drummers got our stuff from tap dancers first. Bill Bojangles or what, different names he'll go through. Now, he would do this, and then Joe Jones does. It's a pretty entertaining record.
No, absolutely. That's a great one. And it's also, if you listen to, let me see, that's the Joe Jones one. But Warren Baby Dodds has one too, where he talks about playing for the dancers. you know, and then coming up with the shimmy beat, which was the predecessor to the swing beat that Joe Jones would do or make popular on the hi-hat. So it always came back to really like the dancers early on. It was always about dancing.
And everyone should check out Clayton's, was that a TEDx talk, a regular TED talk where you went through all your tap dance evolution? What was that called?
Well, yeah, the very thing that I was talking about, that show, I do in a TED talk, and I think it's called A Brief History of Rhythm in America.
Yeah, it's incredible. Everyone should check that out.
Yeah,
I'll second that. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let's play a little of this. If I can, if the gods are with me, I'll get this pulled up. And we're pre-recording this, so when it posts, I'll try to put the video up. I haven't seen the video yet, though. Let's
I haven't seen it either.
It should be ready. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring it down there, but we're all looking forward to hearing it and seeing it. You know, when I hear that kind of music, I think patriotism. Was that it's not specifically American, or is it? We don't know, right?
Well, they said it came from England, but I did read somewhere that Benjamin Franklin changed the words during the American Revolution and made it a kind of a fight rally song for the Continental soldiers.
The words? There are words?
Yeah, I don't have them. I saw them on a website somewhere. I'll try to send them to you. It was he wrote them in French, and it's like "We will succeed" or something. It was along those lines. I forget what he called it.
Maybe we can get Michael to sing it. Michael's not on
that's
this.
right.
He could sing it.
Yeah, we could make people pay to turn it off, right? You can hear it for free, but you got to pay to stop. Did you have in mind tying this into the 4th of July or not? Or I just thought that would be a great tie-in.
It kind of happened organically because of when the project started, and the video crew, when they said they could get the videos done, so it kind of is leading itself to be a 4th of July thing. Yeah, it's just accidental.
Okay. Well, we're going to put it up right before the 4th, and there'll be links in the show notes to where you can hear it and see it, and I understand you can download the music for it.
Yeah, I have the sheet music for the brass, the full ensemble in case any schools or groups out there want to do it themselves, with all of our notations and the way we performed it. And we're going to sell the audio version, and all the proceeds to that will go to Bugles Across America that provides taps at funerals for fallen military personnel.
Beautiful, man. Well, there's your patriotism tie-in
Yep.
right there. All right, Sean, we have a new guest with us. Why don't you introduce him?
Yeah, this is my good friend Andrew Tory. He is a fantastic audio engineer and a great drummer too. And he's the guy that took all of our remote recordings and made us sound really good together.
Welcome, Andrew. How are you, brother?
I'm great. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm more than happy to have you. Tell me what some of the challenges were. I imagine if you're working with audio, you're not used to having people all over the country doing tracks and sending you, they call that stems, right?
Yeah, well, I guess the main challenge was that, everyone's part was recorded in a different space using different microphones. So I guess my main goal was to, give it a cohesive sound as if they were in a room playing together. And I think the reverb really kind of tied that together to make it sound cohesive rather than, the segmented way in which it was actually recorded. So that was probably the main challenge, but the playing was great, so it wasn't that difficult to, make it come together.
To me, that's the challenge. I mean, if everybody plays well and they're together and you can sync it up, that's easy enough. It's getting them to sound like they're all sort of born of the same mother,
Right.
with
exactly.
different EQs and different microphones and different, people don't realize how much different coloration there is.
Yeah, exactly.
depending on how it was recorded. So you say reverb helped to give it all? Is that like a master reverb on everything?
Yeah, I used a few different reverb sends. So I wasn't sending everything, the exact same amount to each reverb, but yeah, and then bringing them together through a bus compressor to glue it all together. And I mean, yeah, that just some EQing, rolling off some low end of the things that didn't need it. Writing some faders for some automation here and there. It came together, pretty quickly. Yeah, it's just there wasn't that much to it, but I guess like when you have great players, it makes it easy. So
Yeah. Now, so you create a master stereo file, and that gets sent to the video engineer.
yeah, that's correct. I think we did a instrumental version, horns only version, and yeah, the full version with both horns and percussion.
Mm-hmm. And Sean, are you the video engineer as well? Are you do your video editing?
I have done it, and since I've done it, I realized that someone else should do it. So I sent it to an expert friend of mine out in Chicago, and he's taking care of all the video for us.
I hear you on that.
Simmons, yeah.
Okay, I was just interviewing Todd Zuckerman last week, and he was saying he had this part. He was doing the album by himself with another guy, and he wanted a tabla, and he thought he could pick up some tabla, and he said, why don't I just call a tabla player?
Right, exactly. That's it. Right.
And he'll be in 15 minutes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it helps to defer to the pros. Now that we're all live streaming, I do all this myself, and I know there are so many things that a pro can make better on video and audio.
Right. That's why I went to these guys. Andrew's just a wizard, because everyone sent me the raw tracks, and I heard them. Some sounded musically, they were all 100% A+, but audio wise, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work. And then within an hour or two, he sent me back the new person in the mix, and I was just like floored at what he did. So he must have a magic wand over his mixer or something. I don't know.
Is that an Andrew? You got a magic wand?
No, I was being too kind.
The magic is here. Your magic ears. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
The drums were actually interesting because all of the four snare sounds were actually very different from each other. So it was about creating this blend of all the sounds to get that, to get what, I don't know. It was interesting trying to make all the snare drums work, because while they were played great, the performances were great, the sounds themselves were very different from each other. So
I think if I could jump in, I think mine was pretty dry, right? Was mine like the driest that you had?
Yeah, that's true.
Now, was that better or worse if it was dry?
I mean, that was great since you're the featured player on this. That was great because I was able to put you right up the center and make it the point. And then Bernie's was also fairly dry, but I think the other ones had a little more room sound, which I was able to blend in on the sides and helped create that atmosphere and that blend between.
To me, it's better than if everybody had played it on the same drum.
Sure, yeah.
You have those different timbres to work with and pull together as an ensemble.
Absolutely, yeah. It helps.
It helps. You're a drummer.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're a drummer. Were you familiar with the Downfall of Paris?
Not particularly, but I'm sure I've heard it before. Sean was actually my percussion teacher growing up, so I'm sure I've heard it, through one of my lessons with him at some point.
Okay. Well, you did a great job from what I hear, and I can't wait to see it with video. I'm sure you're waiting to see that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, well, that's just an add-in, so we get a word from the engineer on this, because it's such an interesting project. I sure appreciate you doing the show, Andrew. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and everybody stay safe during this whole pandemic. We'll all come out the other side, and they'll probably let Clayton off the beach eventually. Huh?
Good to see you
thanks,
guys.
Michael. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.